And here we go. It's the big question haunting Democrats as they try to claw back the Senate. What other bombshells could drop for the embattled Maine Senate candidate, Graham Platner? There's that picture again. You haven't seen enough today, right? Democrat senators reportedly pressed him on just that. They had a big meeting in D.C. He went down there to talk to them all. Liz Warren said, there's a big difference between marital issues and allegations of sexual assault. Well, certainly there are. The oyster farmer agreed with that. He said there is no credible allegation of assault that will be forthcoming. He assured the senators. Apparently that was good enough for these Democrats.
Are these accusations disturbing to you?
What is disturbing to me is what's happening in this economy.
If I lived in Maine, I would hold my nose and I would pull that lever and I would vote for him.
Graham Platner is dedicated to the prospect of defending our Constitution. A man who's willing to stand up to this administration is the type of voice we need in the U.S. Senate.
Are you with the Republican Party?
It doesn't matter.
Are you talking about morality and corruption with President Trump? Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. All right. So just a few moments ago, this story dropped from the New York Times. It has a lot of salacious stuff in it, and here's a bit of it. Several women who dated Graham Platner recall unsettling behavior, one ex-girlfriend revealing disturbing rape fantasies that Platner shared with her. Quote, and here we go. He said this a lot. If anybody ever broke in here, I would rape them, she recalled, saying that he added that it would not be, quote, in a sexual way, not in a gay way. He was like, I would rape them to show them I'm dominant, she says. The ex-girlfriend who he dated for 2 years also raised questions about whether he lied about the meaning of, or not really being aware of the meaning of, his Nazi tattoo. The New York Times reporting that Platner called it, quote, my Totenkopf. Platner's campaign strongly denies that he knew about the tattoo's meaning and that he later had it removed. He says accusations in this piece are coming from a, quote, lifelong GOP operative. So here we go. We got wind earlier today, Ainsley, I'll start with you, that more was coming on this. There are also, we should point out, other women that they interviewed for this piece who say he was kind, that he was a good boyfriend, that he was a good person. So they cast a wide net, and they've got a lot of everything in here.
I mean, this is not good for him. They wanted to interview all 6 of those women. They found 3 that were willing to give their names and talk. Well, actually, out of the negative ones, 2 gave their names, and one was in his 20s, one was in his 30s. They said he was physically threatening, drank heavily, regularly unfaithful, did know that the tattoo was a Nazi symbol, as you said, Martha, and then grabbing her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks. One occasion yanked her out of her cab by her wrist, twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, held the door closed from the other side so that she couldn't get out, telling her to remain there until she was calm. Eventually, she fell asleep, and then she left the next morning. That is creepy. That is very scary. Imagine if that happened to you and you couldn't get out and you just had to go to bed. The idea of if someone broke in your house, my dad would say, I'm getting a gun. He wouldn't say, I'm going to rape the man to prove a point, to show him that I'm the one who's dominant. He had crude names for women's anatomy. One of the women wrote in her diary, the most toxic, literally abusive man on earth who destroyed my life. And her friends text messaged her, do not call Graham. I think that the Democratic Party, this is a hit job. I think they're doing this. I think they want him to resign. I think that they're going to get through the primary, which is next Tuesday, and then he has to drop out by June 26th. I think they're meeting with him behind closed doors, telling him to drop out and hoping that he will. I don't know if he will. Will he get out? He might not. He might say, I don't want to. The Democratic Party has changed. It's the Democratic Party of the radicals now. This is Tallarico, Mom Donnie. This is the party of the squad. This is no longer Chuck Schumer's party. And I think that's why when he's interviewed about this, he says, all he can say, he said it 5 times, we're going to take back the Senate. I think the blowback he knows would be so severe if he didn't support what the squad is telling him to do, and it would be untenable. The only one who's making sense, who has moral clarity, I think, is Fetterman.
So, Harold, I wonder if Sunny Hostin will still hold her nose and vote for him if she were a Maine voter. It'll be interesting to see what the response is here. It's also an interesting comment on early voting. They've been voting since early May. Over 40% of Maine voters have already voted in this election, and it's highly possible that he could skate through and say, look, I'm your guy. I won the primary, and that's the way it's going to be. Do you think that Democrats will change their course here based on any of this?
Good to be with you. I think that's the question of the moment. I think Ainsley said it well. There's no doubt there's probably pressure being applied. I would hope there is pressure being applied. I've said on the show for the last 2 or 3 days now that if I were voting in Maine, I'm a Democrat. He would not be my choice as voting for a Democratic nominee. I think, in fairness to some of the people who probably voted earlier, some of these stories are now coming out, and maybe some of those people would have changed their minds. I do think that, in fairness to other candidates across the country, I happen to like James Tallarico. I happen to like Josh Turek in Iowa. I happen to think that Sherrod Brown, who's ahead in Ohio, they deserve to be able to run these races without having to answer questions about this guy. And I think if Democrats are serious about affordability issues, serious about trying to find the right path to resolution in Iran, serious about addressing housing and education and the kinds of challenges everyday Americans are facing, I hope they're applying as much pressure as they possibly can, because it sounds as if this story, and some of this stuff may, he's been accused of these things. He certainly has the opportunity and right, hadn't been charged with anything to answer these things. But we are in, I think, a critical election period. We may differ on who the candidates should be, but I think the campaign should be about issues and substance and the things people are facing, not what this young man is dealing with. And so I hope he considers that, and I hope they continue to apply the right pressure.
Jesse, what's your take?
It's over. He can't survive it. They have women on the record calling him a brute. He was rough with them. He twisted their arms behind their back, locked them in closets, grabbed them by the wrist, roughed them up, left marks. I mean, you can't survive that. No one can survive that. The guy's an animal. He's unstable. He might even be mentally ill. He's in therapy. And so the whole Nazi tattoo started it. Should have been over then. I mean, why are we still talking about Graham Platner? He should have been out on his keister last month. But the Democrats are so desperate for the seat because if they don't get it, they don't get to pack the court and add D.C. and Puerto Rico as states. So they are all in. And they've totally sacrificed the moral high ground. Remember the moral high ground with Democrats? It was about character. And they were these knights in shining armor defending these institutions and the democracy. And forget about it. They don't have any high ground. They never had it. They never will. This guy is a beast. He knew the tattoo was a Nazi tattoo. She's saying he was joking about it. He called it my little token cough. And then he would rape an intruder, but not in a gay way. This guy should probably be institutionalized as the party of women. The Democratic Party. There is no way they're going to tolerate that. And nothing makes these politicians angrier when you embarrass them. They've gone way out on a limb for this guy. And they have been on camera, on the record, defending this guy. And he told them to their face this was it. And it wasn't. So they've been humiliated. There's no way this guy survives. And the fact that this is all based on documentation like text messages, 24 interviews, and diary entries, it's indisputable. His judgment is horrific. And if you're going to put yourself at risk like this and women at risk, you're going to put the people of Maine at risk. And there's no way Maine is going to tolerate a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me, Greg, that in this particular piece, there isn't more on this Kick account that he had. I don't know why this grown man has a Kick account. It's like for teenagers to talk to each other. And apparently he was quite active on it. Nothing new in this particular piece, but we certainly live with the possibility that there's more coming out.
Youth outreach. That's what I believe
Is that
it was.
what it is?
Youth
It's youth
outreach. He
outreach.
cares about the kids. There's a lot of lessons that are bigger than this just one thing, and they're pretty interesting. I love the shift in rhetoric of the Democrats. For no reason, they'll call any non-lib a Nazi or a fascist. When it comes to Platner, for the last, couple of weeks, it's concerning behavior. And, he might not be my first choice, but in this climate, you never know. Musk raises his arm above his waist. They want to burn down his dealerships. They go after Justice Kavanaugh like he's a date rapist. But Platner, the most repugnant guy you've heard of, they're suddenly non-judgmental. The Nazi smears that they often use and the Me Too stridency just goes away. And what do we keep being told? About his dark period. He had a dark period, like he's a painter. Have you seen his dark period? Maybe it's not a period. Maybe it's a life. Maybe it's a dark life. I mean, was there a time when there wasn't a dark period, like a month in 2003? Do an investigative story on that. This destroys another lie, which is once you compare Platner to Swalwell, which are both have creep tattooed on their foreheads for anyone to see. But there is a key difference. Platner's stuff came out before he was elected. So could this be a do-over for all the Dems who said, wow, if I had only known about Swalwell before he was elected, I never would have supported him. I would have condemned him. Well, now you have that chance. This is a complete do-over. You can do it, Sonny Hostin. You can do it, Bernie Sanders, but you're not, which tells us that you likely knew that Swalwell was a creep, but you were willing to go with the creep because the creep was on your team. So you lied to us about Swalwell. You're lying here. So given this mosaic of creepiness that we have, he said he enlisted because he wanted to kill people. He blames rape victims. He accused Chris Kyle of killing civilians. He wished the death of a war hero. He was on a hookup app for pedos and pervs. Got it. I mean, let's not forget, small thing, Nazi tattoo. I know, we pretend to forget about it. And then there was that thing where he praised Hamas. We forgot about that. This guy makes school shooters look stable. But I'm going to go out and defend him. He's exactly what he is. It's not his fault. He's not going to change. He's never going to change. It's the Dems who keep changing, accommodating to a new low whenever something comes out. I know what Platner is. Every human being on this earth knows what. You probably know a Platner. Everybody has a Platner. But what are the Dems? The secret here is the Dems don't know who they are. Therefore, they are incapable of judging anybody else.
Well said.
Why, thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome. I didn't mean it.
I mean, you have to wonder if they're second-guessing why they invited him to Washington to have these discussions. They could have waited a few days, and all of this comes out. But I think Ainsley's probably right that this is part of a campaign to push him, off the ledge, off the campaign. And I have also heard that in Maine, they've got 5 Democrats who are running for governor in a big crowded primary, that potentially one of them might be their next pick in this race. So we will see. All right.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.